Hey guys, this is Fidas and welcome to the training for today. In this video I will teach you how to use a simple hymn tune with harmonization and convert it into a nice chorale prelude. It's a very simple yet effective method that anyone can use if you have a hymnal in front of you with chorale or hymn harmonization. This question was actually asked and requested by one of my channel members, YouTube channel members, Niels van Velsen, and I'm delighted to be able to help him out. He wants to know basically how to take any hymn tune and like do an emergency prelude. The same is with postlude, but it will come later after this training. I will record another video how to create a postlude out of hymn tune. And I've chosen beautiful hymn tune that you know, Schmücke, dich, liebe, Seele, chorale prelude by Johann Sebastian Bach, is beloved from grade 18 chorale prelude settings, Leipzig chorales, BW 654, I believe. And I've taken this collection of chorale harmonizations published by Novelo, book 20, edited by Ivor Atkins, and he collected all of the chorale melodies that Johann Sebastian Bach used in his organ works and published in a separate edition, like a supplement to the complete works of Bach at the time. It was published in 1918. It's an old collection, of course, but for our purposes it's great because he uses mostly Bach cantata chorale harmonizations. So the Schmücke, dich is also taken from Bach cantata of the same name. So let me first introduce this hymn tune, this chorale tune, by playing this harmonization, and I'm going to choose Hauptwerk, Martiniker, Chroniker samples, beautiful samples that's suited for this kind of music very well. All right, so I'll be using, of course, just simple octave on the Hauptwerk for the manual, and 16 and 8 feet in the pedal, Prestant and octave. Okay, let's do it. Just the harmonization first. Okay, so that's how it sounds. Rather elegant and long chorale harmonization, right? How many phrases do we have? Let's count. 1, 2, and then they are repeated. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 phrases basically. 8 phrases in each stanza. And it's beautiful chorale translated like this: deck thyself, my soul, with gladness. leave the gloomy haunts of sadness, come into the daylight splendor, there with joy thy praises render. Unto him whose grace unbounded hath this wondrous banquet founded. High over all the heavens he reigneth, yet to dwell with thee he deigneth. Of course, it was translated by Catherine Winkworth, and the tune itself was set by Johann Kruger in the 17th century. Beautiful, beautiful melody, right? We're using E flat major key with 3 flats. And the first thing after you familiarize with the hymn and its harmonization is actually to create a concept. What would you like to do with this chorale, right? How it's going to be presented for your congregation or the public or the audience, right? If you don't have much time, right, and you want to play it right away, I suggest you do take example from Bach's Chorale Prelude BWV 721, Erbarm dich mein, o Herr Gott, with repeated chords, remember? Let me show it. Basically, for each of the chorale note, Bach in that setting uses 2 8 notes repeated, and sometimes it's repeated, sometimes it's added gracefully, basically non-chordal notes like suspensions, passing notes. And of course, if this is a chorale harmonization with Bach, we will see some passing notes as well and non-chordal notes in this harmonization, and we can use that very well. So let me play the first step now, and it will be just a repeated notes. Okay, the same as before, but just I will be repeating. Let's do it. Now you have to decide whether repeat it twice per quarter note, or like I did 4 times, basically doubling the note value of each chorale note. So basically we are doing not quarter note motion, but a half note motion for each of the chorale tunes. That's normally the case with a lot of chorale preludes, where actually chorale tune is presented in longer note values, in half notes, twice in value basically, and it sounds very beautiful. It's the same with this Erbarme dich, O Herr Gott. Let's listen like this. Okay, so that's why we are actually doubling the note values of the chorale tune, okay, and repeating it 4 notes per hymn tune, per chorale tune. That's why if you have 8 notes in the harmonization, they will be repeated twice, like this. In the tenor, these are 8 notes in the original, like this. So that would be okay. So you have to practice this a little bit more. And the problem is, of course, not in the middle of the phrase, because it's rather beautiful to repeat everything, but at the end of the phrase where you have half note already. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can. In the half, in each of the right here, right? The first phrase ends with the half note. The second phrase ends with the half note also. And every phrase ends on the half note, except for the penultimate phrase, it ends with the quarter note. But the last note ends with the half note, with the whole note, the last note of the chorale. So basically, we have to think what to do with these endings, right? Because they're not moving. Let me play the first 2 phrases as they're written, and you will see if I have to repeat the last note, it will be not a half note, of course, but whole note, and there will be repeated 8 times because it's the general rhythm. Quarter notes become half notes, 8 notes become quarter notes, right? So that's why you have to repeat it twice. And it might be too much, but I will play it to you and see if you like it. Okay, what do you think? In my personal opinion, the last notes of the chorale phrases, each of the phrases, tend to repeat too much, right? Eight times is already too much. 4 times is already maybe too much. That's why we don't have many quarter notes in the chorale tune itself, which will become half notes, and then you repeat them 4 times. We have many passing notes in 8-note motion, therefore you can do twice per note, not 4 times. It's more beautiful this way, to keep moving, constantly changing everything. But when you have the ending, right, half note becomes the whole note, and you have to repeat it 8 times, and that's too much. And here is the solution. You could change what's written in the hymnal, right? The last note of the phrase. You could change the chord so that the chord would work for the soprano note also, but it would be a different chord. Like the end of the first phrase ends on the E flat major chord, like this. Starting from the bass, it's E flat in the pedals, E flat in the tenor, E flat in the alto, and the G in the soprano. Incomplete tonic chord, that's what it is. So if I repeat it 8 times, that will be like this. Right? It's possible. It's not a big deal. It's not a mistake. But we're trying to do a little nicer, and it's not too complex. That's why I'm teaching you this. So, what other chord you could use with the note G in the soprano? Of course, let me show the top keyboard. Right? Instead of this, you could use this C minor chord, right? Or G minor chord. Like this. E flat major, C minor, and G minor. And that could actually make things nicer, moving faster, so to say. Let me try to demonstrate how it sounds. The first phrase. I finished with the first note of the second phrase now, and I changed the chord every 2 notes. So E flat minor chord, C minor chord, but instead of G minor chord, do this, right? I could do, but with G major chord, you get the dominant of C minor. And it's nice because you can actually modulate a little bit at the end of that phrase to C minor chord if you use dominant of C minor. That's why it sounds like this. And back to C minor. And after that, you can continue as it's written, right? So that's what you could do at the end of each of the phrase. You could actually think what other notes, whatever chords would work, right? Second phrase, for example, ends also on E flat major chord, and you could do the same trick as before. E flat minor, E flat major chord, C minor chord, G major chord, and back to C minor chord. Or it's different now. It's different, isn't it? Because now the second phrase of the chorale ends with a different pitch. E flat major chord, but soprano has E flat major, E flat note, right? The first note of the scale of E flat major. So we don't have the same chord available. Yes, we could use C minor, but we could also use E flat major. Let me show you the keyboard. Without the pedals, so that you know everything. You could end like this, doubling everything twice, and that would sound like this. Wait a second. Like this. Is it beautiful? Maybe. Could it be improved? Yes, I think it's so. Maybe if you could, let me show the keyboard. If you could hold this first chord longer, like this, and then modulate to E flat major with dominant 6/5 chord. So you have to basically use D flat somewhere in the second chord, right? The same is with the third phrase, for example. After the repeat, you have the chord B flat major chord, incomplete chord, and the B flat is in the soprano, so you could double this chord by playing E flat major chord and back to B flat major again. We could use suspension, right, for free suspension. I'm using maybe terms from the harmony textbooks, right, that you need to learn, right, but they're very, very useful. Don't neglect harmony in this case. All right, so like this: B flat major, E flat major, suspension on B flat major chord, and then back to the note of the second or of the next phrase, right? The same is with the next ending. It's still B flat major chord. But it's different because the next chord in the seventh phrase starts with B flat major chord. So you don't want to end the previous phrase with B flat major chord also. You have to end differently. Maybe end with E flat major chord instead, like this. So B flat major, seventh chord, and then E flat major 4 times, and then beautiful B flat major chord. Yes, and the seventh phrase ends with the B flat major chord. In the soprano has the fifth, the F in the soprano. Since in original it's quarter note, you repeat it 4 times. Maybe it's quite enough. You know, you don't need to add another chord because 4 it's still acceptable. But the last note of the chorale in the 8th phrase ends like this. Whole note, right? So you need to repeat it not actually 8 times but 16 times because it doubles. But if it's the last note of your chorale prelude, it's actually even possible to speed up the process and add a few intermediate chords like we did before. Let me show the keyboards. E flat major, 7th chord, A flat major, and back to E flat major. Okay, let me repeat the 8th phrase and you will see if that works. just used before E flat major. I added A flat, F, C flat, and E flat. So in reality, it's this chord. It's 5 chord of the 7th chord of A, F, 7. Second scale degree 6/5 chord, but the C was flat, so it's harmonic version. 6 scale degree was lowered, but it's nice in the cadences. Like this. E flat. Now excursion to A flat major. And now back to E flat major. Yes. So that sounds beautiful, I think. Let me play all of the verses now, all of the phrases with these additional chords in the cadences, and you can decide if you would use that technique while creating your own chorale prelude. And it already is about 2 minutes or even more, because each hymn usually lasts 1 minute, once each stanza, right? Sometimes less if there are less lines. But let's take on average it's 1 minute, and if you double everything like we are doing here, it's already 2-minute prelude, right? Let me demonstrate it for you, and it could be quite enough. And I will tell you what's the next step if you want to expand it even further, but that's afterwards. Let me show you the entire thing. What do you think? Is it beautiful? I think it sounds very, very nice. It's very acceptable if you can do this in a church service. Before the service begins, before the opening hymn, you can introduce it with this kind of prelude. Or if the entire congregation is not actually singing, you could play it instead of singing. That would be very beautiful indeed. So, but let's see how we are doing with time. 30 minutes, 31 minutes. Okay. I could teach you maybe technique that you could use to expand this even further. But let's see if we could actually make it another video, because it might become a little too long for you, right? Practice these steps first, harmonizing the tune or playing from hymn book, and then doubling the notes and repeating the notes. And at the end of each cadence, each phrase, you have to play chord substitutions that would work with the soprano note. So that you would repeat twice or 4 times, not more, right? And that's entire thing. That's very simple chorale prelude that you would play it usually on a soft registration. I'm playing with the principal 8. Could be without pedals actually, just the beautiful chords. But could be with pedals. One thing I haven't done this before, actually, to play longer notes in the soprano so that you could hear. Maybe let's show it. I will not cut this video short, and maybe let's expand it even further, right? What's the next step after this? Next step would be to play half notes in the soprano and repeat everything, like everything else, like we have in BWV 721, Erbarm dich mein, or Herregott. Soprano is longer notes, and the rest of the notes are actually shorter, 8 notes. Okay, let me demonstrate for you. Maybe not entire thing, but the first 2 phrases. Here is the keyboard view. Do you like it? I think it sounds very beautiful, and it's not hard to do. Everything is the same. You just play the soprano longer, basically half notes when it's written, quarter notes, and whole notes when it's written half notes in the hymn tune that you can choose. All right, but remember, this beautiful 721 Erbarm dich mein chorale can be played in 3 ways. The first way that I just played, with the bass in the pedals, left hand takes the tenor, soprano alto is in the right hand part, just like I played with the beautiful registration of the principal, simple principal. You could play with flutes if you want, 8 and 4, or just 8, or gedacht, or quintadena and gedacht, something very simple. Let me demonstrate it for you. Quintadena is still on the Hauptwerk, and together with gedacht it could sound like this. maybe we would need softer bass, 16 and 8 sub-bass and guitar. Let's do it. Beautiful, isn't it? Then you could do the second way. Second way is actually quite common with soprano in the right hand part, but on a separate solo registration. Then what you need to do is actually play the left hand, in the left hand, two parts, alto and the tenor. Let me play just the alto and the tenor for you, showing the keyboard view. Yeah, it works. So then you would need to choose a little bit interesting registration, right? Like this. How about Shalmai on the Rupos Dip, right? And maybe stronger bass, prestant and octave. Yeah, could work like this. Here is the first two phrases. This type of arrangement already requires a little bit more practice, and you could see at the beginning it was kind of unusual for me to switch right away, but when I actually switched in my brain this texture, soprano on the solo manual, alto tenor in the supportive manual accompaniment, then everything is nice. You can actually accompany hymns like this if you want to solo out the melody, but then you need to practice each hymn, each verse like this. But I recommend it, it's really beautiful. And the third way to play this chorale prelude is actually to play all the three lower parts in the hands, alto, tenor, bass, but soprano will be played with the pedal if you have high-pitched stuff, like 4-foot, let's say cornet. We have in Martinique samples at cornet 4. It would sound very, very beautiful. And depending on the range, if your pedal is shorter range, you could actually play one octave lower with cornet 2 if you have, instead of let me play with pedals. And one octave lower with cornet 2. It's a little different sound, different cornet. Okay, organs like this have actually 2-foot flutes sometimes, like this knocked horn. They work very well with the flute accompaniments. Very, very soft. If you have some softest stops in the manuals to accompany. But for our purposes, I think cornet 2 will work very well. Let me show you how it sounds with quintadena. Maybe we need 8 and 4, let's say, on the root positive flutes, right? So remember, again, soprano is played with the feet, alto is played with the right hand, and the tenor is played with the right hand if you want. Yeah, because sometimes the distance between tenor and the bass is too much to play with one hand, left hand. So maybe leave the bass just for the left hand. Okay, let's do the first 2 phrases. For our modern ears, it's rather unusual setup, right, to play the tune in the pedals. But in the Baroque time, it was very, very useful technique. So remember this. Even you could play in the soprano range with high-pitched stops if you have on your organ or on your sample set, if you have Hauptwerk setup like I do here. Okay, so but you have to choose and practice each version very, very carefully. I prefer the easiest way and the most probably effective way would be the second way, to solo out the melody with the right hand on a solo registration, like a soft reed, maybe with or without a tremulant if you have one, accompaniment with flute or two, or a gentle principal would work, things like that. 16 and 18 the pedals, and that would make very, very beautiful version, just like we love playing in Erbarb dich mein, O Herre Gott, BWV 721 by Johann Sebastian Bach. Okay, do you like it? If you enjoy this lesson tutorial, please let me know in the comments. I appreciate your support, and let me know what you would like to learn in the future, because the next video I will continue this setup and will expand this prelude into a longer one, not 2 minutes but 3 or 4 minutes if you have the time, or if the hymn is shorter, not 8 phrases but let's say 4 phrases, you could effectively make it into a simple 2-3 minute prelude without any struggle at all. But that requires special technique, special trick to use, which I will introduce to you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.